Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Critical Podcast. My name is Jimmy Good, and I'm your host. And joining me this week, we have our go-to podcast compadre, Mr. Joe Lever.
Jimmy, how you doing?
And, well, I'm doing very well because we have a very special guest here from 10 Chambers, Mr. Simon Viklund. Simon, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
I got an eye thing, but other than that, it's good.
I think you look just fine, but I appreciate you being on the show here today. And for people who don't know about Simon and his work, well, don't worry about it. We're going to get into it because today's show is all about him and a really cool upcoming game that actually we've been really excited about for almost a year now because it debuted back at the Game Awards, I believe last December. So it's been a while, but man, just can't wait for it. But anyway, Simon, let's talk about you a little bit. Let's get people to know you. So Simon, what games and movies, as someone who's working in the games industry, what things did you kind of come into the industry with, or what games and movies did you love a lot as a kid that you still think about today?
Not games I've worked on, but games that kind of inspired me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was an NES kid back in the 80s. I'm born in 79. So I got an NES Christmas Eve in 86 or something like that.
Oh, cool.
So the Ice Climber came with the machine, and one of the first games I've bought what was Trojan, and then I got into Mega Man. I played a lot of Capcom games like the DuckTales game and Punch Out. I played that till my fingers bled. And so I played a lot of NES games back in the day, and even recorded the music off of the TV to cassette tape so I can listen to it even when I wasn't playing.
Oh, cool.
I was so geeky. And then I kind of got into PC actually because my mom, my parents ran their own company, and so my mom would handle the economic side of it, and they had a little office in our house, and they bought a computer. So and I was allowed to install a few games there. So I played started playing these point and click adventure games in the early 90s. So there was this Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, and some old games like that from the early 90s. And the XCOM games, I love those. The first XCOM, what was it? UFO.
I think you might be right.
Enemy Unknown. UFO Enemy Unknown, I think, was the name of the first game. So in that game, the organization's name was XCOM, but the second game was called XCOM, I think, if I recall correctly. Anyway, I played those games, completed the first two games, I think, on the superhuman difficulty.
Oh wow!
And also System Shock, definitely System Shock in '94. Which is, I played that also on they had different aspects of the game. Could be you could control the difficulty individually for story, combat, and puzzles, I think.
Oh,
so
really?
Could,
cool.
Individually control, and I put them all to maximum. Not the first time, of course, but
okay.
Yeah, I completed that game also. I played that game a lot. So those were really the games up until the mid 90s. That was kind of my formative years when I really absorbed a lot. And then I went to high school in the mid 90s and met Ulf Andersson, who later founded Grin. And then I started working with him and some other guys. We were 10, 12 guys in the beginning, and made a few games, and had a lot of fun.
Cool, nice. That's a pretty interesting kind of spread of games, because when I got into games personally, and I think maybe Joe, you're a little more closer to the mid 90s, roughly around the same time when you were kind of getting into high school and stuff. And then I think Pokemon Blue was kind of the first big what is this? My life has been missing all this amazing stuff. And then it was just right of my Game Boy every
Game
day.
Boys are kind of my first exposure to video games, I would say.
Yeah, but still there's an appreciation and kind of a love and resurgence for the NES and all those things. So I don't know if right now, you personally, Simon, have gone and looked at some of these things like the NES Mini, and you're oh yeah, I remember that.
I played one yesterday.
Oh, cool. What'd you think?
It was a good choice of the good selection of games. I hadn't played all of them, and I would replace some of them. But yeah, I mean, Super Mario Brothers 2 and 3, I love those games. They had Mega Man 2, which is great. They had Punch Out, total classic. The first two Zelda games. I mean, they've got great games. There's hours of fun with that machine. So
Yeah,
I was
for
always
sure.
a big fan of Mega Man.
Mhm.
That was good stuff.
Well, yeah, they keep making them, Joe. They're coming out. It was like Mega Man 11, I think, is the most recent one. Look at that. They're just still the Blue Bomber. He's still killing it. He's in Smash
Yeah.
Brothers. He's doing things.
Yeah.
And even PlayStation's trying to get in on this whole thing with their own little mini and stuff. So or the classic or whatever. It's just like they're just going to keep making these. Wait 20 years, I'll have an Xbox Classic or something, and they'll be like, here you go. Be like, well, cool. Also, like, we always talk about like movies also being really big and inspiring for us here at Critical Reviews. Like, are there any movies that you kind of look back to, or any maybe more modern ones that you really love today?
Well, I like Die Hard a lot.
Okay, nice.
Who doesn't?
You and everybody, yeah.
I'm not unique in that regard, I guess. Best Christmas movie ever.
Yeah.
It's called good taste.
I liked Fight Club when it came out.
Ah.
That was big. I liked that a lot. And Matrix, of course, back in '99. I mean, by then I was already 20 years old. So I can't really say, like, I can't remember a lot of. Yeah, well, there was one movie actually in the mid '90s created by Catherine Bigelow, the who used to be married to James Cameron, and later directed The Hurt Locker.
Yes.
She did a movie called Strange Days.
I feel like I've heard of it.
Which is really cool. You shouldn't even read about it. You should just watch it. It's kind of a dark, it's very dark actually. It's a very dark, like, what's the word? Dystopian sort of futuristic thing about like the turn of the millennium, sort of, which was like 5 years away when that movie came out. It was strange because there was like all riots. It takes place in Los Angeles, and it was like all riots, and it was always dark, and like only, yeah, it's a very dark movie, and it was sort of weird of them to imagine that that's where the world would be in like 4 or 5 years, but it has some really cool concepts. Like, it's a science fiction movie with some sort of you can record your experiences, like what your eyes see and everything, and then you can actually play that back by putting something on your head and and see what someone else has experienced and feel, see everything that they see.
And they're trying to find a killer, right? Something like that.
Exactly. Murders, someone who it's really cool. I that movie really stayed with me after I saw that one. So that's it. That's a really good science fiction movie, even though it's fairly grounded. Like, it's not like, space and laser guns and stuff like that. It's more.
Yeah,
it has some.
Nothing wrong with that. That's cool.
It's
that's
not
fine.
too fantastical. I remember. I think I've seen bits and pieces of that movie, and I do remember it was actually. It was a little captivating. I thought some good ideas. I liked it. But it's been a while.
I'm going to on imdb.com, where I list all my. I always, after I've seen a movie, I always add it to a list there.
Oh, really? Cool. I've never done that.
No, I didn't even know you could do that. That's slick.
Yeah, you can create your own lists. So I have a list of must-see movies, and then one list of have-seen.
Oh, cool. So, like, what's at the top of that must-see?
I can actually, and you can go to your list. So I got like 1,655 titles that I've seen.
Okay.
Terminator 2 is high up there, yeah. No Country for Old Men. That's a recent movie. That's like 11 years old. So I was Groundhog Days. I love that one.
Good pick. There we go.
The Prestige.
Oh my gosh,
It's a
yes.
totally underrated Christopher Nolan movie.
It's like his best. Honestly, I think it's his best. It's so good. It's
Yeah, I
so
love it.
good.
Heat,
Heat. There you go.
Alien, the first Alien, Little Miss
Oh.
Sunshine. I love that one. Godfather Part 2.
A good list.
Yeah, those are like the top ones that Star Wars, Raiders.
I was gonna say, I think you said, yeah.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, Leon, The Professional with Jean Reno, the
Oh,
Luc
yeah.
Besson movie. That is a really good one. I saw that in the mid '90s as well when it was pretty new.
Cool.
Back to the Future. That was big.
Yeah.
I love that one.
I was gonna say, I think you said Joe's trigger word, which is alien. He's our xenomorph lover here. Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, alien. Yeah, that's one that people just still keep talking about. We had a guest on a few weeks ago, Sophia, who had never seen it before in her life, and she saw it recently, and she's like, yeah, it holds up. And I was like, that's just how good it is, man. Like,
yeah,
practical effects.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more timeless.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, totally.
And the sequel as well, like Aliens, is of course, it has a different vibe, but you know they take it somewhere, and it's still really great. Like more of a, I mean, sort of a Vietnam parallel, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's actually a really good point, like an allegory to it. Yeah. That's a good point. I never thought of it that way. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Holy crap! Oh my gosh. Well done. Cool.
So the first two Alien movies are of course also like the lighting and the design of the monster, and like they have their own, like, you know, the how it works with the queen and the eggs and the face hugger and the yeah, it's all like, it's such a good like lore to it, sort of. I'm actually a little bit disappointed that they started exploring that too much, because I think it was better when it was sort of vague and like you could imagine, rather than like actually telling it like, this is exactly what happened, how they came to be. Like, I don't know. It feels like it's the same with the actually I didn't want to see it, the Han Solo movie. But I saw it on the flight back from Los Angeles just a few weeks ago. I was like, this is actually a movie I can see on the flight, because you don't want to see on the flight. You don't want to see a movie that you've been looking forward to see, because then you want to see it with a real like sound system and like big TV and everything, and in the couch, and like have a good experience. Whereas and you don't want to see something you absolutely don't want to see, because that's just a waste of time. So you see those movies that are like, I can see this. Yeah. Because the picture experience is like bad, but the audio experience in the aircraft is horrible. And then often they've like edited the movies and stuff for content or something. So I was like, I can see the Han Solo movie on the flight. I can do that. And that was the same. That they've watched like all the old Star Wars movies, and they've picked these things out. Like, oh, he has this chain with the dice, hanging in his, and they've never made a thing of that. And now it's like, we got to turn that into a huge thing. And like how he got his name Solo, and like explain these things. Like, why? No one asked for this. Like,
people are perfectly content until now. Why are you doing this?
Yeah. So that was a really, really mediocre film in my. It was exactly what I expected it to be. Like, it didn't like when you see the old movies, it's like, of course it's nostalgia. You can't beat nostalgia. So it's it was an uphill battle they made it impossible for themselves to try to, and when they started out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, I guess my question to you too is, did you ever see Rogue One?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah.
Did you like that one any more or less?
I'll admit, actually, I liked that one. When I went out of this theater, I was like, that was cool. That was like, because you remember the last what's the word? Act?
Last Jedi. Oh, the last act. Oh yeah, the last act is so good.
The last act is cool. And then I saw Red Letter Media's analysis of it. You know Red Letter Media? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and they were like shitting all over it. And I was like, yeah, they got good points about the characters, because these characters are super one-dimensional and they don't evolve. Like nothing happens to their, like they don't change over the course of the movie, and they're really like cardboard, cutout. Just, oh, I'm rebellion girl. Oh, I'm rebellion guy. And then like, it's just, and I gotta agree. So that actually, I changed my opinion of the movie. So now I think it's like mediocre as well. Like, but I'd rather watch that one again than the Han Solo movie still.
Yeah. See, I'm just a sucker for Darth Vader, so I'd watch that Vader sequence for like 2.5 hours just on loop. I'd be like, ha ha, ha, I love it. So keep it going. Yeah. No, I see. And that the thing with Solo is, you're right. They kind of were answering questions nobody really cared about. But in Rogue One, it was kind of like it was a throwaway line in one of the movies where they're like, a bunch of spies, they got these plans for the Death Star, and it's like, that's a cool story. I'm cool. I'll buy into that story,
Yeah.
So I'm glad. It seems like we're on the same page. It's good. You're our people, which is nice. Yeah. But anyway, okay. So we know some games, we know some movies that have inspired you that you like and stuff. But let's get into some of your work, because you have been working. How long have you been working in games now? I don't want to give a date, like for me, from what I've researched. I want to get a date from you. Like how many years, maybe?
I've been working professionally in games for 18 years, since the year 2000.
Cool.
Because Ulf actually quit high school. We were in the same class, Ulf and I. So he quit high school because he couldn't handle like people telling him what to do, and he didn't like the teachers, and he just wasn't compatible with the school system, pretty much. He's a super smart guy and really driven, and like, yeah, he likes to teach himself things rather than having other people tell him how to do things. So he just like started this company together with his brother, and they started looking for some talents to help them out with programming and graphics and stuff like that. And Ulf is kind of his brother was kind of the business strategy sort of economics guy, and the and Ulf was the creative, more of a, like, he could program a little bit and graphics and game design and things like that. That's if you like, if you what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, if you those were the archetypes. Like Bo would be involved a little bit in the game design as well, and I think he could program a little bit. I don't remember exactly, but yeah. So anyway, they were looking for someone to invest in their company, so they were making demos and stuff, and to show that what they could do. And I actually helped out making music and stuff like that in my spare time, even before 2000. So, but I can't say that was professional because I didn't get a salary. But then when they actually got some company or some someone to invest money in the business, they started hiring people, and I was one of the first ones that they actually hired to make the music. And that was in the like May 2000, I think. So 18 and a half years, something like that now.
Cool. That's really cool. Oh my gosh. Do you remember what was the first game that you ended up working on, even before you were paid for it? Was there one like in particular, like, I worked on this one way back?
No, I mean, those were all demos that never became anything that was released. I remember the concepts, and there was some top-down sort of things. I remember there was a game called Take No Prisoners, released back in the late 90s. I don't think it was on any consoles, but it was on PC. And we were working on some sort of maybe not straight top down, but some sort of a, what's the word? Like when the camera looks down diagonally.
Is it like an isometric?
Isometric, that's the word I was looking for, yeah. So there was some sort of something like that, a little bit like the Crusader games or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Sure.
But it so but then when they got funding, they started a proper company, and we started working on our first game, which was Ballistics. So Ballistics was a futuristic racing game where you it actually sounds a lot like the game when I'm stuttering now, because you were on these hover bikes in sort of a tube, and
Cool.
it started out actually collaborating with NVIDIA to make use of their latest technology back in 2000. So it was one of the first games that used some technology that I don't remember the name of right now, but so that was sort of a flagship game for that feature. But other than that, I don't think the game is like very memorable, especially not my voice contributions to it, because we didn't hire a voice actor, so I did like some sort of a speaker voice in it, and it's horrible.
Oh, cool.
But
That's
that was the
super cool.
first. That was back in 2000. It was released in 2001 actually, and then in 2003 we had another game coming out, which was called Bandits Phoenix Rising, which had more of a story, and we had cast voice actors, and that we recorded in Stockholm, and that was it had like story missions and a storyline and almost like cutscenes, but everyone was sitting in cars. It was sort of a Mad Max, cartoony sort of Mad Max game with like racing and shooting between cars, and everyone was sitting in their cars, so you wouldn't have to animate anything other than just the camera coming in towards a group of cars standing in a circle, and that was them talking, and then you would have like a little bit of just a still, image of the guy inside the car who was talking. Sure. And then so but that was a cool game. And I made like 2 hours of music for that, 2.5 hours of music for that game or something like that. It's insane. If you search for it on YouTube, you'll find people actually uploaded some of the music from that game on YouTube.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so that was from 2003, so that's already 15 years old.
Oh wow, yeah,
PC only, and then after that it took off sort of, and the company was surviving for a little bit, just doing games that were never released. Survived on the funding for those games, and they were canceled, and eventually caught the attention of Ubisoft, that hired Grin to do the PC versions of Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 1 and 2 in 2005 and 2006. So those were not ports, but actually we got some graphic content and all the voice lines and the music, but then I did like all the weapon sounds and Foley sounds and everything, and then the programmers would program a completely new AI for the enemies, and it was it was a different game pretty much from the ground up for the PC to really for the PC audience, because they wanted a different sort of experience, more of a tactical, because that's what Ghost Recon really is. But for the other team that Ubisoft had hired to do the console version made more of a console-y version of the game. So I always like to point out that was not a port. It wasn't a port. It was we made the PC versions of the game.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh. So like you get all this stuff, and then you're like, I'm gonna have to make a bunch of new stuff for this. And you had to make, you said, the weapon noises and stuff. Like, did you make the how did you do that?
That was my question, is do you use like something totally unrelated to an actual weapon to make that sound that you're recording? Or
I didn't record much actually, and it's super difficult to get a weapon in Sweden, even finding a gun range where they would shoot anything other than just hunting rifles is pretty much impossible. So we had like sound effect libraries that we bought, and they provided us with the sounds from the from the console version of the game. But as I remember, the quality of those sounds were already like compressed the way they were compressed in the
Okay.
game, so they didn't sound as good, and I would have to like add or mix stuff into the sounds to kind of put some makeup on the sounds, so to speak.
Like polish it, yeah.
Yeah, polish their sounds and to give them a little bit more oomph.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
That's
I actually didn't record weapon sounds for a game until Payday 2. So for Payday 2, we hired we rented a gun range outside of Stockholm in a suburb, and then we hired some people from the local, like the group of people that ran that gun what's the word, gun range.
Yeah, gun range.
Yeah.
And they came, and we just said, just bring whatever you have. And we knew that there wouldn't be any SMGs or any assault rifles or anything, because no one in Sweden has that stuff.
Yeah.
So they came with like hunting rifles, and someone had a revolver, and someone had a pistol maybe, and then we paid them just to fire their guns, and we used them pretty much. Those recordings were very useful to record like the echo of the sound, and
Yeah.
of course, and then we would use them like, so this would be maybe the high caliber echo. So whenever you fire the weapon in Payday 2, you would hear the echo of that, around the we put some microphones out in the forest and in the around the gun range, and then just decided, this is a cool sound for this sort of caliber, and this is a cool sound for this sort of caliber, and we just divided it that way, because you're never shooting a hunting rifle, not in the vanilla version of the game. At least you didn't have the weapons that they actually shot, and we couldn't record SMGs and assault rifles and stuff like that anyway, or even shot. Maybe they had shotgun, because you can hunt things with a shotgun. I don't know, but yeah, we just used the echoes so that we could create more of that heat feeling, where it's like really like the sounds really propagate into the environment, and you can feel that the echo of the weapons like washing over the city landscape.
That is so fascinating. Oh my gosh. See, because I knew that you did most of the music stuff. I didn't really know that you did like the sound effects stuff too. So I would think, especially where you're located, like you're saying, you obviously have some challenges that you faced here with that, where you're like, well, every gun can't sound like a hunting rifle. Like the pistol can't sound, an assault rifle can't sound like hunting rifles just being shot again and again. So that is cool. So did you end up getting like audio libraries and trying to do the same thing you did for Ghost Recon?
That's exactly what we did. So for the dry sound of the actual weapon, we would like piece together or mix, different elements from weapon sound libraries, and like, this sounds cool, but it doesn't have the kick, and then we just add a little pop or something to it and mix that into it, and just sit there and like mix and match and just get something that sounds really cool. And then when we added the that huge echo sound that we had recorded, it sounded more powerful, because on the libraries, they don't have a lot of echo, because you don't want that. But the echo is what makes it powerful, because that tells your brain when you hear the sound that this was a sound that was powerful enough to travel and then bounce off of stuff in the environment and come back to you with this power. So the echo is actually what tells you that it's a powerful sound. So it really changed, like the feeling of the weapons really changed when we added those the echoes. And of course, it doesn't matter that the echoes were recorded with like single shot weapons, because we would like fake it and just put a lot of those echoes after one another and create these loops. And when you release the trigger, we just play a sample that is like one shot anyway, which is like echoing and attenuating over time like that. And then no one can tell that the echo is from a single shot weapon, even though you shot like a fully automatic weapon. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you get away with.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh,
So
thank you.
all the weapon sounds in Payday 2 are a mix between hunting rifles and things recorded in at a gun range outdoors gun range in a suburb of Stockholm, mixed with weapon sound libraries.
That is so cool. That is so fascinating because I think for me anyway, I would think like, yeah, you either have your library or you just have to find a place where you go and you rent some place, maybe here in the States, where you're like, all right, we'll try to find a place where you can like fire all these things and get our own unique sounds. But it sounds like you just kind of mix and match and you still have a unique thing, but you just work with what you have, which I think is really cool because like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
That is so cool. So kind of moving on to like the musical side of things, because you compose for these games and things like that. Has there been any music, and maybe since, the last maybe even 10 years, like any musical scores from games that you just listen to and you're like, that is really, really good. Like you're like, oh my gosh, this inspires me.
I actually, to be honest, don't listen that much to a game scores outside of maybe of playing the games, but then
Sure.
I also don't play a lot of games, so I'm not actually exposed to that much uh, to game music to a very
Okay.
high level. But I'm going into Spotify here because I need to find the name of a guy. I have never played. Uh, yeah, there's a guy called Michael McCann who did the soundtrack for Deus Ex: Human Revolution.
Yes, there you go.
So that sort of like futuristic Hollywood music sound, like hybrid is what it's called, when it's like you have the strings and the orchestra, but there's also a lot of sound designy stuff and synthesizer elements in it. I love that. I think it's really cool. And so that guy's really talented. There's a lot of guys that do that and do it really well, but he in Deus Ex Human Revolution, he really, that's from 2011. That's what Spotify says, at least. He put it in the game, so that I would say that as an inspiration.
That's really cool. Well, it sounds like, from listening back to like the Payday 2 stuff too, it's kind of a mix of not necessarily futuristic-y, but kind of some synth stuff, but then also some orchestral things in there
Yeah,
too. And I really appreciate that mix because it feels like it fits super well with like a heist game. Like it just feels like it's perfect for it. And like you said, Heat was one of the movies that you enjoyed. Did like when you're like making this music where you're like, okay, what would have been kind of cool in Heat or something like that?
yeah. Well, the Payday music, especially Payday 2, uh, is a lot like, just my thought process was, okay, so this is a power fantasy. You want to be like, it's a cool thing. In this game, it's a cool thing that you rob a bank. It wouldn't be a cool thing in real life.
Yeah.
Of- needless to say. But there's a power fantasy. It's escapism in this game. So you're a cool guy. You get to be the guys with the president, U.S. president masks in the beginning of um, Point Break, or you get to be the guys in with the ski masks in Heat, and do that thing that they do in those movies, and like scream at people, like, get the fuck down on the ground,
Yeah.
nobody, and shoot in the ceiling and stuff like that, and just so I wanted to make music that was like, told you as a listener, you're freaking cool. And yeah, I just went to like electronic music, hip hop beats for the slower stuff, and like drum and bass and house music, and yeah. So even in the first game, you can actually hear that sort of evolution. I started out doing more like a industrial thing with a lot of like distorted drum loops and stuff like that. It was a little bit less dance floor and more like inspired by um I don't know what would be the what's that anyway, I'm wasting your time here.
Oh
But,
no, not at all. I was trying to think of what the word would be too, because I was thinking I like the
no, I
less
know.
dance floor.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about like some industrial, maybe. I can't remember.
That's
I
okay.
actually don't listen to a lot of that music, so that's why I don't remember the names of the. There's a not machine. I can't
I'm trying to think of what it
remember.
could be too. Like it'll come to us. I feel like when we're talking about it, you'll just be like, I remembered it. That's okay. But less
Yeah,
dance floor, more of that other thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then like we expanded upon in the first payday game, obviously, not obviously, but if you don't know the first payday game, every heist, because there were very few heists, fewer heists. It was more like quality over quantity, I'd say, in the first game. So we released the game with like 6 heists, and then we added 3 heists, I think, on top of those. So it was 9 heists if you had all the expansions. And every heist had its own music, so you can change. Like you can play a certain heist and choose whatever music you wanted. It was like, this is the music for this heist. So for the last heist that we added to the first payday game, I made a really like house sort of inspired track. So already in the end of the life span of the first payday game, I was into having the house more of a dance floor sort of music in there. And then for payday 2, I just went all in and was like, okay, so now I'm gonna be like, it's not even gonna care about it being a game. Almost, it's not gonna, I'm not gonna attempt to do it like a cinematic sort of thing, but it's gonna be like in your face, totally unapologetic, like music that you can listen to outside of the game. It'll be able to stand on its own legs and just be like on the soundtrack, and people will enjoy it, and then yeah, like it or not, like you can turn it off if you think it's too invasive. So the music is very like, I mean, in movies you want to make movies you want to make music that's subtle, but I was just, I'm gonna go all in and be like in your face.
I like it. Well, that Mayhem in a Suit one specifically to me when I was kind of going through the Payday 2 stuff, like that was like it really stuck out to me as being like the big first thing that you kind of listen to. You're like, yeah, we're here. Get used to it. And it kind of mirrors like the actual gameplay, because it's like, okay, you might have like your regular life, but like you are knocking down the doors of this place and you're like, we are bank robbers, we're stealing stuff right now, you can't ignore us, and that's what you're gonna have to deal with. So I feel like it fits really well with what you're trying to go for, actually.
I think it adds intensity to the gameplay, right?
Yeah.
I think that's more enjoyable in that manner, right?
Yeah, that's
but I
what I
mean,
think.
you can add intensity, but like have something with a pulse that you pick up more, with your subconsciously pick up, like it has that in the background, but it doesn't have to be like all, house anthem sort of like with melodies and like all these layers. But I went there, and then people really seem to enjoy it. Like I get a lot of emails still from people like, oh, I listen to the music all the time when I drive, or when I'm working out, or when I'm out jogging, or
Wow.
That's so cool.
So this just
cool.
tells me that it's like, yeah, it works outside of the game as well. Like those are songs that really have, I'm trying to create hooks, really. Like most of the tracks have melodies that you're supposed to like, that are supposed to stick to your brain.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, totally. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I guess my other question, kind of with this game and with the upcoming of GTFO and all that stuff, do you typically get information about a game first, make your music, and then put it on the game, or do you like we kind of watch the development of the game and curtail some of the music to that?
Sorry. Frontline Assembly. That's an industrial, a duo, I think, that makes industrial sort of music. Front 242. That sort of, yeah. I listened to a little bit of that back in the 90s. So yeah, if you check those bands out, you'll see where I got some inspiration for the some elements in the first Payday, the Heist soundtrack, and also part of the soundtrack back Bandits Phoenix Rising that I made in 2003, because that story was about was it 3 or 4 different factions in this wasteland, this Mad Max sort of wasteland, and each faction had their own soundtrack, like they had their own style of music. So one of them, I made this sort of industrial inspired thing, but I've put it through my filter, so I added some like beats and stuff to it that wouldn't be like industrial music really, but lots of like distorted drums and stuff. So I made half an hour of music for each of the 4 factions, I think. So it ended up being 2 hours of music. So Frontline Assembly and Front 242. Those are the sort of some inspirations. Sorry.
Oh, cool. Oh, no worries. Question? That's fine. No, I was kind of, that's part of it a little bit, but like I was asking kind of, when you're making music, do you make the music, at the same time as the game is being made and you can look at it and kind of, shift some of the things, or do you kind of make your own thing and then come back to it and say, hey, this is what I made, it could fit here? Or how does that kind of process work for you?
Well, it's easier if you're an in-house composer, which is a luxury. You're not often, like, not a lot of composers are actually in-house, because most development teams feel like music is something that can be added by someone who even sits off-site and never sees the game really. And then you maybe send that person, that composer, some footage of the game and stuff like that, and give them some like reference tracks or something, and then it can be good. You can't do that with there are other disciplines within the game development that you can't do that with, but music is one of them that I think kind of it can work out really well even with someone off-site. So it's a luxury for a composer to be, full-time in-house. And I was that, in Grin from 2000 to 2009, and then when we founded Overkill, I was like in-house and working with a little bit game design and some documentation of the game design and stuff like that, creating the characters and casting the voice actors and directing them and editing all the voice lines and putting them in the game, sound design, implementing the sounds, composing or producing the music and implementing the music. Yes, it was really nice to be like in the team and hands-on and there every day and being part of the team and yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, that you're right. That does sound like a luxury, because from a lot of the things that I see from other games, it does seem like it is completely offsite, and they're just kind of, they'll put up the game and they'll kind of try to match it with like whatever score they're trying to do, but it's not necessarily like they're working right with the developers saying like, hey, like,
No.
let's do this together. So that more cohesion, I think that's really cool. I like that a lot. That's very cool. Yeah, well, cool, sweet. So now we know.
I have worked off-site on some projects and not, working super tight with the developers. But that works too. You just gotta try to take part. Trust them when they tell you how the game is going to be, because they create it, and then listen to whatever reference tracks that they have, and just try to be their tool to do what they're paying you to do something. So don't be this artistic like, no, I'm gonna do my own thing. Like, you're getting paid to do this is a job, so you can't be this pretentious like, I'm gonna do my own thing. Like, you gotta put that your ego aside and just be like, I'm gonna be the tool that they use. Like, they're paying me to do this, so I'm gonna do something whatever they ask me to do. Even if if you're disagreeing with choices that they make for the music, then of course you gotta bring that up and maybe fight for it a little bit. But after in the end, if you're accepting their money, you gotta accept their orders.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, you got to deliver on what they want. That's for sure. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Interesting. Well, okay. We talked about the musical stuff. We talked a little bit about also like the sound effects, which is just fascinating as well. But let's get specific here. Let's talk about this game that's coming up from 10 Chambers, GTFO. like we said at the top of the show, a game that was announced back at the Game Awards last year, to the surprise of very many. And we have a few kind of specific questions. And I know, Simon, that you're not necessarily involved with all the specifics, on all the parts of the game. But well, the first question is it really GTFO, or is it like Golf, Tango, Foxtrot, Oscar? Are these the names of the guys? Is it like Gus and Troy and Frank or something? Is it really GTFO? Can you say that?
Troy, Frank, and Otto.
Yeah, and Otto, not Otto. Like he's gone. He's like, see ya, Otto.
I actually championed that idea that I wanted the characters' names to the initials to be GTF and O. But we abandoned that for I don't know what reasons, but yeah. No, the name of the game is GTFO, and then it's not Get the Fuck Out. It's GTFO, and then we just let people decide for themselves if it stands for something. We might have something in the game that'll make people believe that maybe it's that. It's just up for interpretation.
I love it.
I like that. Yeah.
That being said, it goes the phrase "get the fuck out" goes very well with what the game is about. Like you're stuck inside this place against your will, and you're trying to find some way to get out of there. It's not a good place to be, so you want a GTFO,
Yeah, exactly. That's great. What a great answer, man. You crushed it, because I think a lot of people kind of like can look at that name and just be like, all right, whatever. But like, I love that there's more to it than that. And like you said, if you see any bit of this game, that is the feeling. You're like, I need to leave immediately. Like I need to start running right now, because there's never a sense of safety.
The other part of it that I like is that it's smart marketing. I mean, immediately you see that title and somebody spurs curiosity in somebody just because they're thinking something else. It may have other meanings, but
it's polarizing, because people seem to really love it and think it suits the game perfectly, and some people really hate it and think it's like some kind of a millennial chat room. They just get these different associations, and we just tried to make the logo really like dark and gritty, and like it's almost like blood like painted on. It's a really like horrific sort of logotype.
Jimmy,
so to get away from
that, you
that,
just said dark and gritty.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I say that all the time.
So, but love it or hate it, you remember it.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, it really turned out to be a really good title.
Yeah, cool. All right, that's wow. What a great answer. Oh, and you said dark and gritty, like Joe was saying. Kind of, he loves saying that, or ominous and stuff too, which this game kind of strikes all those chords. And I am wearing, for people who aren't watching, I'm wearing a Gears of War shirt, so I'm not opposed to anything dark and gritty or a little bloody, because that's just that's kind of what we're about here.
That's how I like my games. It's how I like my movies.
Exactly.
My music, everything. So I love that.
That's so good. All right, Joe, you've got a question for him, right?
Yeah. More specific to GTFO here. I'm a major design guy, so I like to look at the visuals. Music inspires me and captures me as well. But then when you look at the other side of the coin with the visuals and design aspects, I've seen some of the gameplay and your teaser and everything, and I kind of wonder, okay, it does seem somewhat futuristic. The environment is kind of a one-off original kind of take on something. What kind of inspiration do you guys pull from maybe real life elements to develop things like, the environment for the game, the map, or what have you, or the weaponry or accessories, things like that?
It is. I remember when we started working on the first Payday game, Ulf's idea was that, okay, we'll just make a contemporary heisting or robbery game, because then we can just, what does a fire hydrant look like? Yeah, we can Google it, and then we can just model off of that. We don't have to concept stuff. You don't have to create like, how does a phone booth look in 2077? You got to design something that looks futuristic because it doesn't exist yet. So even the things that exist today, they have to look different because it's the future, So that's the good thing with making a contemporary game. You can just look at reality and Google stuff and then just model it after that. If you're making a futuristic game or science fiction game, you have freedom in other areas because you can start doing like, oh, but this is hovercraft. You can fly, or we have a jetpack, or we have this beam that can tractor beam, or we have laser weapons, or this area of effect sort of thing, or this telepathic whatever. You can have machines that do stuff and you just accept it as the consumer just accepts it because it's science fiction. So you get freedom in the design, like the design of how things work in that world, but you got to work a little bit more on the design of how things look, because it can't look exactly as today, because then it wouldn't be, you kind of don't accept it as something futuristic. Because it wouldn't be fun if it was like, oh, and the phones in the future can teleport you, but it looks exactly like a phone now. You wouldn't, that would be lame, sort of. So that said, we've only so far shown one setting in GTFO. In all the trailers and the gameplay clips you've seen, you've only seen the mining / industrial sort of look, where it's like these mining tunnels and corridors and almost warehouse sort of rooms with like these piles of the crates and the what's it called, the shelves of boxes and stuff like that. But we have more than that, and it's going to be revealed in a not too distant future. But we start off with that, something that you accept. I mean, a mining tunnel looks pretty much the same today as it does in the future. Sure. Or it looks the same in the future, I assume, as it does today. So we start off there, sort of, and then gradually things will become more science fiction-y and weird. And it's just, I mean, the designers and the graphic artists just have to dig for inspiration somewhere, because it can't look like it like it anything does today. But there's some tropes, I guess, that we explore, like some cliches, but also we got some really talented people on the team that really I can't speak for them where they take their inspiration from, but what I can say is that we'll start with this sort of baseline normal thing, and then gradually it'll get more weird in GTFO. Weapon wise, and the gear that you use is a little bit like based on weapons that exist now, and they're supposed to look really like torn and worn, and it's more like they're the you're not special forces, like you don't have the best stuff, really. It's more like bootstrap, sort of, what's the word, makeshift, almost like repurposed mining gear that you use. Instead of a scanner, it's more of a thing that maybe they used to know where they would drill when they were drilling in those tunnels. So it doesn't look like tactical and cool. It looks like very clunky and something that they would be carrying around, the mining workers would have. So it's a futuristic thing, and it has these scanning abilities, but it's you've repurposed it for your needs to scan for the monsters in the corridors. So that's the thought, that it's not like you're not military. And I've been thinking about that for the dialogue as well. They don't use like Chick 6 and these the lingo has to be non-military as well. And we don't even call the individual, like when you take a trip down into the complex, it's not a mission, because that feels that word also feels very military. We call it expeditions because it feels more like your mission just feels too much like you're going down there to fight, like, and do something like kill all the enemies or something like that. And then GTFO is not about that really, because you want to avoid any fight that you can avoid. It's a good thing, you know.
That is that's so cool.
I will say that's kind of refreshing, you know, in a video game market that is probably, most would say, overly saturated by military style games, to have something that's, you know, similar but still different and detached from that aura. It's refreshing. I think that's cool. And then applying ingenuity from different, work type things to do military-esque things. That's cool. I think it's just a more original idea and different from what you typically see these days.
Yeah. And I do think, or we do think, that people who do play, tactical military style games like Rainbow Six will absolutely love GTFO. So because it is a tactical game, even if the characters don't have like military style tactical gear, it's still a game that requires a lot of tactics, and you do have the tools to apply different sort of strategic, approaches to things. But it just looks different from how it looks in other games.
Sure. And that's where you as a player come into the fact, get factored in, and you have to figure that out and say, okay, how am I going to use this, as opposed to, okay, here I would normally have a grenade, here I have something a little different, but kind of does the same thing. Okay. That's cool. It makes you think a little bit more, and I think more engaging, because of that. So good. Yeah, watching some of the gameplay, I was joking with Jimmy about this before the show here. I was like, man, it looks intense. Like, I feel like the game package, you should open it up. There should be like blood pressure medication that's included, as like a bonus thing, which right up my alley. Like the dark and gritty, that's my kind of thing. I think there's just something captivating about the style. The darkness and the kind of mysteriousness, and then, maybe a little bit of jump scares here and there. That's, kind of inspired
jump scares.
my
It's gonna be up to you, I guess, how susceptible you are to to that sort of stuff. But I mean, it's not going to be sort of a scripted jump scare, storyline where, like, when you walk around this corner, there's going to be something jumping out at you. It is going to be more of just mood, the atmosphere, and high stakes in terms of what you can lose if you die. So that's what's going to create this angst when you're walking around, like, what's around the next corner? You don't know, because you've never played that particular map before. It's intense, but it's not like Resident Evil sort of intense, where it's like these scripted scenes and they're super creepy and scary, and like this old freaky looking lady grabs you by the throat, and you're the camera, and like they have these scripted sequences that are super like visceral and scary, and I mean, we can't really do that with all these custom, like, we don't have that sort of ambition even with a game. It's more like giving the players a mission, and they're going down there, and then expedition. They're down there on the expedition, and you know what the stakes are, and that it's very much survival horror levels of health and survival horror levels of ammunition. So you're almost always like on the edge of, verge of running out of ammunition. You want to make sure that every shot counts, and it's always that you need to count on one another. And that's another thing, maybe the most important thing to mention about GTFO is the emphasis on cooperation. Because what we feel is a lot of games that claim to be cooperative games are really just games where you play alongside one another. You don't actually play together.
Yes.
Yeah. because you're overpowered and you can kind of run off and do your own thing, and it doesn't really matter, and one player a good player can carry a team of 4. And in this game, it's like, no, that's not going to work. You all 4 need to be like on your toes, and you need to, be at your best and bring it, and it matters to choose different, weapons and tools to complement one another rather than just, I always play, I like this stuff, and then not looking at what the other characters or the other players are bringing. So even in the loadout screen, it starts already there, with the cooperative elements.
Yeah. So it sounds like kind of like Payday. Payday 2, had a class system. Is this one more kind of you're picking your loadouts, and I see Joe's bringing like a shotgun, for example, and I'm bringing an assault rifle. Is that kind of like we're picking a class?
Yeah.
Kind of.
You decide your class.
Yeah.
With the tools that you and the weapons that you bring, so you can kind of build your own whatever. With your loadout, you just choose whatever place what your role in the team is. You don't choose I'm the medic and then automatically you get all the medic perks. It's not like that. You can just mix and match the way you want to, because we don't want to like tell the players that, oh, if you're playing this archetype, you always have these things, and just assume that the players, I mean that feels a little bit like casual sort of approach to it, like casual gaming, sort of like assuming that the players don't know how to, what to play. Like, oh, I'm the I don't know what, the glass cannon or whatever.
Yeah, like a sniper or something.
And then so then we've chosen for you what you need. Like, no, we just leave it up to the players to choose whatever they want, and then maybe some people will realize that it doesn't work. I mean, you'll survive if you're good at first person shooters, and you can aim and shoot, but you might not work well together with the rest of the team. And then eventually that will not turn out great.
So okay,
what that does though, and Jimmy, this is up your alley because you're always preaching to me, Joe. We're gonna run together, right? If we're playing some first-person shooter here, Joe. All right, we're gonna go this way, right, Joe? And I'm already gone. I'm on the other side of the map doing my own thing. This game is total opposite.
Yes, exactly. This is my life.
So it's going to be a hard left turn change for me, but I'll get there. But what you said there about player decisions, making sure team composition is balanced. In order to succeed, I think that promotes just thinking by the players and gets them invested in the game and the gameplay itself. And to me, a game that has those aspects like that, with the freedom of choice and building your own kind of custom class, that just I can only think of one thing that's kind of addicting. It kind of really sucks you in. But sorry to interrupt you, Jimmy. Go ahead.
No, that's a good point. Well, Joe, you and I played so much like Monster Hunter over the past year, and that's not a game where it's like, hey, you know what, Joe, you're gonna be like the tank and I'm gonna be like the healer. It's like, no, you kind of pick stuff. It's like, oh, you're bringing this weapon, I'll bring this weapon. And that kind of reminds me of like what sounds like GTFO you guys are going for here, which is really cool. And my question is kind of like, we're going on expedition. Are we going for some money? We're gonna go try to like find something good down there. Are we looking for some good valuable resources? Is that kind of what
Here's the thing. It's sort of a labor camp setup. So you're like at the mercy of your captors who keep you,
cool.
And you're forced down there to carry out their objectives. And you can scavenge and find some stuff, the scraps that they don't want, you get to keep. But whatever they have ordered you to fetch from down there, or that you get from whatever they've ordered you to fetch from down there, you don't get to keep, and you give it to them. And then as a reward, you might get rations so that you survive another day. And then as you rise, and like if you complete missions, they have more, I guess, confidence in you, and they can give you some better weapons so that you can complete even harder mission. So it's sort of a natural like evolution of your character. Like if you complete things, and if you, sorry, I haven't really put this into words before, but yeah, it's you need to gain their confidence, I guess, and before they allow you to have better gear. So you get the gear from the warden, which is the name of the entity or the organization or the group. You don't know how many there are. You don't see them, but you're sent down into the complex with their orders.
Okay.
To it might be fetching something from down in the complex, or it might be like starting up an generator, or a fiddling with some machine down there, or downloading data from some sort of a data bank or computer or something and bring it back up. You don't really know what their agenda is, but and that's part of the mystery with the game. Like, who are they and what are they after, and can you escape, obviously, and where did the monsters come from, and who built the underground complex, and what was it for when it was still operational. We have a lot of these, like, question marks that we will gradually straighten out throughout the lifetime of the game. So when we release the game, there won't be like a campaign that you play from beginning to end, but we will keep updating the game and tell the story, over the course of the lifetime of the lifespan of the game, sort of.
Wow.
But yeah, regarding the your relationship with, rather than being the hero that saves the galaxy, you're just this scavenger that's forced down into this underground complex. We just figure, it's always bugged me, at least, when it's like, yeah, I want to take a dump on some games here, but I loved the first Destiny game. I played that for hundreds of hours, but it's so silly. Like, you're the only one who can save the galaxy. Our hope is in your hands, and like, travel to the stars and kill all these epic monsters. Hey, do you want to buy this weapon?
Exactly.
Am I not the only one who can save the galaxy? Like, why do I have to buy? Why do I have to purchase this stuff? You should give it to me, because I'm the only one who can save your freaking ass.
Yep.
Same in, like, I played the Division for a little bit. Bought that for my PlayStation 4. I didn't enjoy that very much, but that was the same thing. Like, only you can save Manhattan. Do you want to buy
Yeah, exactly.
like
Special
a
gun?
Kevlar vest, or this assault rifle? I was like, what are you selling me stuff for? Like, isn't this supposed to be the military? And I realize, of course, I mean, I'm just talking smack, but it's like, it's the game design. You gotta, the player has to earn something, and get it from, like, you complete missions, and then you gather some sort of a currency, and then eventually you, like, saved up enough money to get something, and then you feel like, a sense of accomplishment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it just feels like the story in GTFO just solves all of that, because it's all like, you're not given anything until you've proven yourself. Because if you go down into the complex with some good weapon that they've given you and die down there, they've lost that weapon, and they would rather have given that to someone who they could trust to actually go down there and complete the mission and come back up. So yeah, I like that aspect of the story. It's just a detail, but it solves that thing that always bugged me about many other games.
That's a huge thing. That is the narrative and the context determining, like, how the gameplay works. Like, that's incredible. Like, that's a good thing, and it's good that, like, you get that, because, like you're saying, with Destiny and stuff, or like when Destiny 2 came out and it was like, oh, everything was destroyed, and it was like, but there's like thousands of Guardians, and we're like the strongest people ever. Like, why couldn't we stop this thing? But like, here you're already saying, like, hey man, you're not the strongest. You've been enslaved, and like, you have to get, you got to go down there and get to work. It's like, Makes sense.
I like that
like
style
that.
of progression.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of Payday, which is like the power fantasy, and now it's like this is the shitty fantasy.
Yeah,
Like this
exactly.
is a place where you don't want to be. You don't have the equipment you want to have. It's like you don't have the amount of ammunition you want to have. It's like everything is like everything wants to kill you. There's no upside to engaging the enemies. You don't get any experience points. You don't get any ammunition. You don't get any health packs from them because they don't drop anything. Everything you find is like from scavenging in the environment. So engaging the enemies is just to survive. If they're between you and your goal, you got to sneak past them. If you wake them up, you got to fight them, and that's just a waste of ammunition, a waste of health. So it's like very tense, and it's not like even in the dialogue I make sure that we avoid, like, if there's like reinforcements coming, like more monsters coming, you won't hear a character saying like, oh, more meat to the grinder, and like lines like that indicates that they're like enjoying it in any way. Those, you would have that sort of line in Payday.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess they invited more guys to the party or something like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Making some sort of quip about they're being more police incoming or something like that. But yeah, for GTFO, it's more like that would break the atmosphere.
Yeah.
That would ruin it if you had those sort of lines where it's like they're having fun and they're cool guys and they're these larger than life action heroes. But on the other hand, I think you gain something from sort of more of the realism, and we've hired Adam Gascoigne, who is a writer, and he wrote for Doom 2016, and he's writing for Doom Infinity, the upcoming Doom game as well. And he's worked on Call of Duty games and The Last of Us and stuff like that.
So cool.
So he's helping us with the dialogue, and we're really trying to create these characters that are deep and interesting, and they'll reveal more things about themselves through banter between one another and stuff in the lulls between the action or the combat parts of the game. There is a lot of sneaking around, a lot of stealth, a lot of exploration, and just moving slowly and kind of mapping out the environment in GTFO. So there's time for the characters to kind of say a few things to one another, and we'll try to like tease who they are, and it'll be cool.
That's really cool. Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. Well, it's just it's refreshing kind of to hear this type of thing, because obviously, like, you guys, might not have a lot of time to play games, but at least you've looked at your modern contemporaries and you can say, hey, here are things that we maybe like, but a lot of things we don't like, and that helps reinforce the decisions you're making for your game, which is cool. That's really nice to hear. It's like, oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Like,
important details.
Yeah, very important details. And I know that's kind of supposed to be a mystery, but can you say anything about these monsters that seem to explode in eggs when you smash their faces or whatever? Like those little green droplet things. They're just out there. There's things gonna get
the only thing I want to say is that they're not zombies. It's not a zombie game, and it's not a horde shooter. Some people think it's a horde shooter, and we realized that that trailer, the gameplay trailer that we released at the Game Awards last year, it could be interpreted as that. We tried to put some focus on the exploration part, but we knew that to capture people's attention and really grab people by the nuts, you'd need to like have these like over the top action sequences, and that's how fighting is in the game. It just maybe took up a little bit too much of the trailer, sort of, and people will realize that the game is a lot more slower paced, and even though sometimes you might come to a door and that, okay, when we start the opening sequence for this, it's going to trigger an alarm, and that's going to draw monsters to this location, and it's going to be sort of a horde shooter sort of sequence, but it's not all about that.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because, like, it's kind of a hard place to be in when Jeff Keighley's like, hey, do you want to show this game off, and you want to really excite people about it and show this trailer and have this cool VO and be like, get excited about this, but then also say like, hey, deliberately, this isn't just Left 4 Dead 3. We're different. We're gonna like you want to try to be a little more stealthy and tactical. You can't just shoot your way through everything forever and ever like those games. So that's good to know. And I'm glad that's I kind of know that now, because like looking at the gameplay, Joe, you and I've looked at it. It isn't just constant firefights. Like there's a lot of like decisions that are like, oh, I'm gonna engage here, or I'm just like I'm gonna try to sneak past if I can, just kind of get through this whole sequence if I can, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely not. I think very decision based, it seems, and I don't know. Yeah, I think some people might have seen that and thought, okay, they're all coming flooding through this door or something, or maybe it's like Call of Duty zombies. But as I watched it more and more, I realized that it definitely was not that. I don't know.
It comes from the pedigree of Left 4 Dead,
Sure.
4-player cooperative, PvE, first-person shooter games, and of course, Payday is in that line of the family tree as well, especially since 3 of this team of 9 have actually worked on Payday and Payday 2. But yeah, it has a very different mood, very different pacing from any of those games, like even Left 4 Dead. So some people think that this is like, oh, this is Left 4 Dead 3, the game we've been waiting for. But it's I mean, it can scratch that, that
scratch that itch.
that itch, exactly. It can scratch that itch a little bit, but it's a different sort of beast. And I think people will enjoy that, of course. I mean, we wouldn't make a game that we don't think that people will like, but it's different from other games in the genre.
Yeah. Well, do you guys take that as a compliment when people are like, "Oh my gosh, it looks like Left 4 Dead 3"? Are you like, "Yes, it's different, but we appreciate that," or is it like, "No"?
Well, I just see it as a misinterpretation of the trailers, because it has such a different feel, and I'm a little bit like, what's the word, trepidatious about like a little bit worried that people will think that it's something that it's not, and then be disappointed when they play the game. But we've been very clear that we try to be clear in any interview, that it's, there's a lot of stealth, there's a lot of exploration, and then, no upside to actually engaging the enemy. So you want to sneak past them if it's possible. And, and then of course sometimes there's no way around it, and you attract the monsters, and then it's going to be fighting. But there's like, as I mentioned earlier, survival horror levels of resources. So it's very like nerve-wracking in that regard.
Yeah, well, that's the reason you want to play this game, and to play it with your buddies, because like
we sure hope so. Yeah, that's what it's meant to. We're going to make it possible, of course, to find pubs and to play with people you haven't played with before. But yeah, you're gonna get the best experience when you play with people, and if you have shorthand, the speech and everything down, and you got your tasks, or what's the word, your different roles in the group, sort of. That's it's a love letter to everyone who already who are into cooperative games and really want to be put to the test.
Exactly. Joe, you hearing this? Okay, so when we're playing this, like when you go off and do something dumb, it'll be like, remember what Simon said, because he said the right thing.
You can't Leroy Jenkins this game.
Exactly. Thank you.
In our team, I'm the Leroy Jenkins, actually. The programmers have been like, we're gonna put some monster in there that grabs the people who run off. You gotta have some monster that targets the lone sort of
the lone wolf. The guy, they're the straggler,
renegade.
That's cool. That's a good idea. From my perspective, I'm kind of one of those gamers who, basically my shelf of games, or on my hard drive, it is nothing but multiplayer style games that I can, because I see games as more of a social thing. When a game has that cooperative experience, especially one as detailed as this, that just drives me to play it more. I get to spend good time with my friends, discuss not only the game, play the game, experience that with them, but relax kind of.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how relaxing this one will be. I might be a little more wide-eyed, but no, I think it's a good direction to move in. I think it makes it more appealing, especially a game of this style.
Yeah, definitely.
Something I had to ask you, and it's very unlikely, but when I saw the trailer, I was like, Jimmy, this reminds me exactly of an old PS2 game I had, Area 51. And yeah, U.S. government based in Nevada desert, whatever. But it's like a endless story campaign kind of a thing with like similar mutated monsters, unidentified, whatever you want to call them. But it plays a lot with lighting and this military base environment that's kind of underground. And it gives me a lot of the same vibes. And it's not a hugely popular game. Maybe a small cult following, but I remember playing that and just getting kind of captivated by it. It had a good story, really gripping. But enough about it. I guess. Have you ever heard of it? I'm just curious.
I don't think anyone in the development team has, actually. So
I'm
it's
the
not
only one who knows about it. Dang it.
Yeah, GTFO is definitely not inspired by that game. I can say that much.
Okay. This is just a curiosity thing for me, but
He had to ask.
and I think we've covered other games that kind of inspired or maybe related or same vibes or auras.
Yeah.
But
a lot of the thought process has been like, okay, we did Payday and Payday 2. Let's just take it to the next level. And then the choice was pretty easy to go into the sci-fi sort of setting, because that allows you to do a lot of stuff. So whenever we come up with something that's just, okay, so here we need a function that just forces the players to stand together in order to open this door, so that you can't go through the door without everyone in the team being there. Okay, let's just have this, this holographic, hologram that appears like a circle, and then everyone stands in the circle, and then you have the door opening after a while. Like, okay, and you just accept it because it's sci-fi. As I mentioned before, sci-fi just allows you to do these weird things. So the choice to do to go sci-fi was a lot about that, just because it allows us to do all these weird mechanics, and we don't have to sort of explain them too much. You just you just
creative freedom.
Exactly, in terms of game design mainly, because it's game design governed. It looks the way it looks because we want to do the things we do game mechanic wise.
That's so cool. I like that. And it sounds like it's freeing, because I think for a lot of people on the outside looking in, you look at something like the Payday franchise and be like, oh, like they would try, want to maybe do something like that, or Payday 3 or something. But it's like, no, you're kind of saying, let's take all these crazy ideas that you just couldn't put in a modern heist game and be like, let's just make something completely different. Let ourselves not be shackled, right?
To be fair, I think Payday, I haven't played Payday 2 for years, actually, even though I've continued to contribute with some music and the voice of Vane in it. But it's, to be fair, they've added a lot of stuff in that game that doesn't really, can't be explained. Like, they have these perk decks where it's like, yeah, if every headshot you make, all your teammates get a buff of blah, blah, blah for 2 seconds. And
yeah.
every time you're down, your health is below 25%, you get blah blah blah, something else. Like, there's no explanation to how that works. It's just, I guess people accept it because it adds depth to the game experience, even though it's not like, yeah, it makes the game more interesting, the gameplay.
Yeah. But even though it doesn't make sense,
it doesn't make sense in the world of in the game, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. It's that Destiny thing where it's like, I just want to buy why do I have to buy a gun? I just can't. I'm just gonna think about that. Or Division 2. Hopefully Division 2 fixes that. It's like, I want to buy this beanie, but I'm the only person who can save Washington. That just seems so weird to me.
It doesn't feel like the sort of thing that they felt that they wanted to fix.
Sure, that's true.
There are other things. Let's just put it this way: there were other things that needed to be fixed first.
Yeah.
in order for Division to be a really great game.
Priorities, yeah.
So what you're saying is that there's definitely a dark zone coming to GTFO where you just fight each other for resources and you're like, give me that gun. No, that would be no thanks, man. No, thank you. Cool. Well, I feel like that's what a great look into GTFO. And right now it's coming out for PC, correct?
Yes. And
PC.
we would absolutely love to put the game out on PlayStation 4 or other consoles. But we're a 9-man team, and we just got to focus our efforts and not spread ourselves too thin. So a simultaneous multi-platform release, I mean, that's hard enough for big teams.
Yeah, for sure.
Almost no one does that.
Yeah.
So I mean, we haven't even thought of or planned or started on a console version. We're just working on the PC version, and if that turns out to be very really successful, then we can start thinking about a console version possibly. And we would love to do that, but we can't right now.
Yeah, well, hopefully one day. That's because that seems like the hope for the team is to do that, to get it in as many players' hands. Obviously, like any game, but this one really, I think, is going to live and die by the groups of like the 3 or 4 man women teams where they're playing together and they're like, hey, we should all play this together. Let's play this tonight. Like, hop on.
Absolutely,
play.
yeah.
It's like, so cool.
I
I'm
have to
hoping
buy a PC as soon as this game comes out.
Well, we'll just get you. Yeah, we'll get you set up. Joe will figure it out because I was looking, I was like, it's coming to PC, but one day it's got to come to everything because I just want it to come to everything because it looks so cool and I'm excited about it.
Well, it's I mean, you're not going to have a monster PC to run the game because it's not a benchmark, testing sort of product. It's not a crisis.
It's a crisis.
It's not that sort of a game, so it's going to be. I'm confident in saying that it's going to be well optimized, and you're going to be able to run it on a sort of shitty computer.
But it'll still run well.
Even I mean, we're developing the game on computers that are like 4 years old.
Oh wow! Oh, cool. Okay. Nice. Okay.
So it's not, and the game, and we're playing the unoptimized version in the Unity engine as we're developing the game, and it runs fine. So yeah, it's not going to be, the game that you need a super powerful computer to run.
Okay, Simon. So basically, we want to know one thing: when is the tentative release date for GTFO?
Well, up until just recently, it was 2018, and we've realized slowly during this fall that it's not going to be possible. We want to put more stuff in the game. We want to polish the game more before we release it. So right now, it's set for spring 2019. I've seen some people say, equate that to Q1, which is the first 3 months of the year, but that's not the spring. In our book, spring is more like March, April, May, maybe. Those are the spring months.
Yeah.
So somewhere around there is when it's getting released, and it's been a blessing and a curse actually to get the opportunity to show the game. That we got the opportunity last year to show the game at the Game Awards, because that just fell into our laps out of the blue. And we hadn't planned to reveal the existence of the game. Hype's been building, and now we have the champagne problem of having to maintain a hype that we really weren't prepared to juggle at the same time as we're still developing the game. So we realized that maybe the game was announced, its existence was announced to the general public in a manner that made people feel like it was closer to release than it actually was. But I know, games get delayed all the time, so we're in good company. You can't rush perfection.
Exactly. Well, that's, we were talking about this right beforehand too, but my mentality is always that a rushed game is forever bad, especially in the public's eye. But a delayed game, it might be hard, but at the same time, so many games, so many amazing games. You look at, especially like Red Dead Redemption 2 just came out. That game got delayed a ton. It's like, you know what, these things take time, and I appreciate that you guys are coming out and saying that, because you could say like, hey, it's still coming in 2018, we think, but like, you're getting ahead of it. And spring, same here. I live in the Midwest, so spring to me is definitely not like February when they're like, oh, it's like the first quarter, and I'm like, it's at the end of March, like April, May, like that's spring. So spring to me, I think we have the same spring definition, which is good.
Yeah,
cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it either way. I'm excited to play it and stuff. So thanks for letting us know about that. Also, I forgot I was going to ask you about this too. How was your night hanging out with the people? Was it Remedy that you were hanging out with?
yeah. It's this third party plugin for audio implementation, like sound effects and dialogue and music in games. It's a Canadian company called Audio Kinetic that has a product called Wise, which is like a plugin for 3D engines and stuff that handles sound. And they had like a presentation from two developers, and one of them was Remedy, that had a really interesting presentation of their game Quantum Break from 2016, and then they showed some stuff from their work in progress game that they're working on right now. That's called Control.
Yeah.
And they do really cool stuff with the sound effects, and especially the music was really cool, like how they used music. And I used that same tool, that same piece of software, so it kind of broadened my mind as to what that piece of software was capable of, and I've started playing around with similar ideas. I was already like going down that rabbit hole, that they've explored further, like deeper than I had. But I just the thing is, here's the thing. I'll try to not be too wordy here, but when you make music for games, it's like, okay, so this is the song. It starts, and then it's like 4 bars of this, and then there's this drum fill, and then it changes to this riff, and then 4 bars of that, and then it's a build up throughout those 4 bars, and then there's a key change or whatever. And yeah, so you build this piece of music, and then you start thinking, well, this is a game, so why should the music be predetermined like that? Why should it be 4 bars of this, and then something happens? Why can't the change happen in time with something that happens in the game? So you start like, okay, the drum fill should be triggered by, maybe an enemy appearing or something, and the music should change depending on the key change should depend on the health of the character or the player character, and stuff like that. And you start connecting, like, and making it so that the game dictates the arrangement of the music more than it being prearranged. And once you start going down that rabbit hole, is that is like, where do you stop? Like, it goes down to one. Eventually, you'll have music that is like one beat at a time, and parameters in the game start dictating what the next key and how hard the next drum hit should be, and like how into what detail do you take that, really. So they've gone pretty far down that rabbit hole, and I like they haven't actually made it so that the every drum hit or note that's being struck by the music system is like its characteristics or parameters are dictated by parameters of the game, but it's very random, and it's very like they can change the intensity of every single hit. They can change the pace of the music, like gradually up and down. So it's pieced together by little like one hits, rather than being these long prearranged pieces. So yeah, they're a little bit crazy.
That's so cool.
And but it sounds really awesome. Like it's very percussive music, which makes it more manageable what they're doing, because once you start introducing melodies into it, or if they would have introduced melodies to it, it would have been like 10 times harder. That's how I imagine it, at least, because the melodies would be like non-musical, or repetitive, or the instruments would be like, it would be weird in different for different reasons. But percussive instruments is super easy to like they lend themselves to that sort of implementation, and it really really inspired me that they showed that stuff. So I'm bringing a little bit of that into GTFO actually.
Cool. That's really cool. Oh my gosh. Did you want me to like take that little bit that you just talked about and put that into? I could. Like that was incredible because it sounds like that is like next level music design for a game that's kind of in a way not completely dictated by the player, but is really like it's reactive.
Responsive, yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
responsive too.
that is so cool. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Wow, that's so cool. Thank you. That was, oh man, that sounds like a cool thing you went to. A cool, I don't know what it was, like a symposium, or was it like some sort of kind of like events or
Yeah, they invited people on their I'm on the mailing list from that company, and they emailed like we're having a presentation in Stockholm. So yeah, they just hired like this conference room and had this like invited like 100 people from anyone who wanted to come. It was free, and then they had some snacks and stuff in between the presentations and stuff.
cool.
Just way to, I guess, get people excited for their software. So
Cool.
it was, yeah, sort of a, what do you call it? Not advertising, but it was like commercial. Like it was just to get people excited for their stuff.
Oh
But it
yeah,
was
it's like promotional.
like, yeah, it was really inspirational.
That's so cool. That's really cool. Oh man, and it's cool because that's going to help. And now that you have more time, you know, you can put some of that into GTFO, right? Hopefully.
Exactly. Yeah, I've started to sit up late nights now and experimenting with that aspect of the software and just exploring what can be done with it. And I don't believe as much as I did when I started exploring that in like in theory that you know there's a limit. This is how I should put it. There's a limit to how to what level of detail the game parameters should affect, you know, individual hits in the music and stuff. There has to be some in order for the music to be musical and enjoyable on a like musical level. I think the music needs to have some structure dictated by the composer and not only be like uh, dictated by the game, even if it's within a set of rules that are meant to keep the music musical. You know, even if the game dictates, you know, how the music behaves within rules that are meant to be to make it enjoyable and sound as you expect sort of music to sound. I think it's very difficult to make it truly great. So you have to find that balance between, you know, what the balance between arranged by a human being and composed, and then still adaptive and tied to these parameters in the game. And I mean, it's like one of the things that make games unique, that they're interactive, that they respond to what you're doing. They're not a movie, so the music shouldn't be, you know, pre-arranged to a, a too high of a degree, you know.
Yeah. That's I completely agree with you. It's really weird because I think of games, especially like JRPGs. There's one I'm playing through right now called Dragon Quest XI, and in the past they've done a full orchestral arrangement, and it used to be like this beautiful, breathtaking score. And the only reason I was okay with it is it wasn't very reactionary. It was just like when you went into the open world, it played this song, you know, on loop, but it sounded really good. Now for this new one, they have, I don't know if it's called like MIDI or something, but it's like computer. So you can tell that it's like it wants to be an orchestra, but it isn't an orchestra. It's like, you know, it's just computer generated noises that try to be like a full orchestra, but it's not the same. If that makes
Yeah.
any sense to you, it's just kind of like sad because it's like, oh, I wish you guys still did that, because like now it's very apparent. Anytime I go anywhere, it's like, yep, this is the music they got to queue up for this thing. So yeah, definitely it could be a little bit more reactionary, but what you gonna do? I don't
It sounds like an approach that they would choose, that they would sacrifice the realism of the instruments to make the music more adaptive, because MIDI would actually allow you to change the intensity of each individual key. You would be able to change the tempo. It's exactly in fact what Remedy are using for these
Really?
MIDI is the method or the technology
Oh,
that they're using for that percussive music. But I agree, most MIDI instruments that are like, what's the word? Uh, Performance, like most MIDI instruments that are easy enough on the hardware of a computer, like how you have to edit this. I can't find the words.
That's fine.
Most in order for an instrument to be able to be played live by the game, sort of, rather than being an exported, like finished like audio file, but actually be played by a MIDI sort of sequence in the game, it would have to be sort of simple in
Yeah.
terms of its sound. In order for a MIDI instrument to sound really realistic, you have to have what you call round robins, so that each time you trigger the same note, it has a different sample that it plays, so that you don't get that machine gun effect, and also like different. It should be different recordings for different velocities. Like if you hit the note hard, it's supposed to be a recording of a hard like hit on the instrument with a harder like transient or attack, and then for softer, when like notes, it should be a recording of a soft note, because as you know, a piano it would sound unnatural if you just hear that it's a note that's played really hard, but it's played back to you. It's recorded very hard, like you hit the note really hard, but it's played back to you at a low volume. It would sound weird. It doesn't
Yeah.
sound realistic, because if you press a piano key softly, it has a completely different tone or character, and the attack is softer and stuff like that. So yeah, in order to make a MIDI instrument sound really realistic, it would take a lot of memory, and already you got a game running, so you can't have too advanced or too complex like MIDI instruments playing at the same time. So yeah, that's the thing. I think Remedy did the right choice by just limiting it to percussive instruments, because those are they're not tonal, so you don't have to have the different pitches recorded, and um, yeah, it just MIDI lends itself to you can do percussive stuff and get away with it much more easily than you would like having a MIDI piano, or the worst things are the legato instruments like violins and stuff, because then you have to have like transitions between notes as well, because a violin player doesn't play and then instantly they have the finger on the next note. It's just they're just a quick slide between the notes and stuff like that. It's very very difficult to make it sound realistic, and it's hard enough to make it you know to have these instruments running in a DAW, like DAW, a digital audio workstation, which is like the programs that you use to compose music in, let alone having those instruments be running while you're playing a game. And they take up like gigabytes of RAM memory,
Oh, I'm sure.
just the instruments, in order for yeah, you need so many samples for it to sound realistic. So it sounds like going MIDI is a choice that you make, and I don't remember the name of the game that you mentioned, but it sounds like, yeah, going MIDI is something you do to get the make the music more, being able to make it more responsive, and not the response
Reactionary, reactive.
reaction, yeah, reactive. um Responsive, is that like I was thinking of responsibility, like
Oh,
that's not the right word, like it's not responsible. But yeah, MIDI is something that allows you to make the music more, you can actually have like an instrument playing, and then as something happens in the game, it starts playing more softly, and then as the player gets more health or kills enemies or whatever, it could like gradually change over time. Whereas longer samples, pre-made recordings, wouldn't have that ability, because you can only change once the sample reaches the end, and you're like, okay, what's the next sample? And we have like 10 seconds of something, and then you can't change until you're at the end of those 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds you would be able to change something, but with MIDI you can change it from note hit to note hit. It's very like so responsive and reactionary. So it's but yeah, I'm this was very wordy. But yeah, I understand why they made that choice for the game. But it sounded like when you described it as if it wasn't adapted, the music wasn't adaptive to a greater degree. It just sounded worse.
Yeah, that's pretty much the problem, is that, like, I think in the previous game, or the previous one that I'm familiar with, the 8th installment, Dragon Quest 8, they had a full orchestra, and they just kind of took that recording and they just put it in there, and that was just what you had when you got to these certain areas. And it seems like they took that same approach, but then they just did MIDI music instead, so they didn't have to do like the full orchestra. Like the orchestra did the theme song, but like they didn't do the rest of the game or something. So it's just like a little bit of a disconnect for someone who loves the music as much as I do. I'm like, oh, this could be better. Like, it kind of kills me, but it's still like, I still love the songs and the themes and all that. So I'm like, it's okay. I'll survive, but it hurts. It hurts just a little bit. So if it was being used the way that you had talked about it, then man, yeah, it would be really cool. That would be a step forward for the franchise. But it's an old school franchise that wants to be like an old school Japanese role-playing game. It doesn't really want to push the boundaries too much. So maybe they're just like, just do this. It'll be easier on the game and we can make the game bigger then. Maybe that was another concern, like you said, because it takes so much, space, memory to actually have these songs be in here in the way that we talk about them, like hearing them live. So they're probably like, well, maybe we'll just make a bigger game and the music won't be as good. So, but yeah, let's get into the last segment of the show here today that we like to call Timekillers. And that's the games we've been playing, movies we've been watching, TV shows we've been viewing. Joe and I have been kind of just playing Red Dead Redemption 2 and stuff. We're kind of, people have heard from us. And Simon, you don't have a ton of time on your hands, but do you do anything to relieve stress between, all the working and the composing and all the stuff you do for the game?
Yeah, that's a problem. I don't have a lot of time to kill.
Yes,
that's the problem.
It's even better than I've ever done it.
Yeah, he's so much better. Oh man.
So yeah, the name of the segment is just doesn't fit with my life right now. Timekillers, like, that implies that there's time to kill. Like I'm a father of a 2-year-old daughter. I have a wife. I gotta give her some time as well. I'm partner in a company that's trying to self with our own funds try to develop this game, and hopefully after the game is released we'll get the money back that we've sort of, because we're not on like market level salaries right now.
Especially if you're invested in it.
Exactly. So I mean, you're just trying to put extra time into the product, to pour more love into it, so that hopefully when it comes out it'll pay off somehow. So yeah, there's not a lot of time. I purchased Last of Us as a Christmas present for myself, and that's just how old is that game? Like 2013?
Yeah, it's a few years now at least. Yeah.
And it's a game that you just have to have played, and I've never did. And now we're working with Adam Gascoigne that worked on that game. I was like,
you're like,
I gotta buy it now, and it's still in cellophane wrap. I haven't played it since December last year. But I played Horizon Zero Dawn when it was new. That was 2 years ago?
That was last 16. I think it was last year.
2017. Okay.
Yeah.
So I played that, and then I purchased the expansion, the
Frozen Wilds.
Frozen Wilds, exactly. And I installed that like maybe a month ago, and play just the beginning, run up to the first like settlement, and just talk to people, and just to get a feel for like, okay, so what are the quests here and stuff like that. And then I haven't touched it for 3 weeks maybe now. So that's how my life is. I play I'll tell you what is a time killer. When I take a dump on the toilet, which is like my alone time, then I play tower defense games on my cell phone.
Oh, cool. Nice. Nice. Is there any in particular that you're like, I really love this tower defense game? I used to play a few back in the day. So,
Yeah, it is Realm Defense is what I'm
okay.
playing right now.
Cool. Nice. Okay, there's a time killer, kind of. Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go. I appreciate your candor though about it, because you're like, I don't have a lot of time to kill, man. All right, I'm watching Solo
Many of
on the
us are
plane.
guilty of the same thing.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. That is so cool. Well, man, thank you. This is so enlightening. It's really cool to, we're game enthusiasts. Obviously, we cover them. We're critics and stuff, but it's nice to talk and kind of get the people behind the games to get out a little bit in front in cameras and stuff and like show that people are making these. Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes you can look at these huge games and be like, oh, there's like 1,000 people working on it, and there's not like one person, it's like, but it's cool to kind of chat with someone and see a little behind the curtain, just a little bit, just a smidge.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just launched Steam because I know I purchased some games recently, like that. What was that popular side scroller game?
Trying to think of which one you're talking about here.
Cells,
we're talking
Dead
about
Cells.
Dead Cells. Oh yeah, Dead Cells. Good game.
I purchased Dead Cells on launch day. I was like, this looks really cool. I had my eyes on it, and it was on my wish list. So I purchased it. I haven't even installed it yet.
It's a fun game.
That's how that's how my life is right now.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So whenever there's time, in the day, there's always like something you want to put into GTFO, or maybe I got some music, to polish or something. Games are art. You can always like polish and add. It's not like you're just screwing, bolts on something on a conveyor belt. It's like,
Sure.
and then you just have to screw it until you can't screw it any tighter. It's not like that. It's a work of art in the sense that you can always put more time into it, polish it a little more. And as with all art, you just have to decide at some point that now I stop working on it. It's not finished. I stop working on it and put it out there.
Yeah.
So and with the setup that we have and the approach we have to development right now, it's just you put a lot of time into it.
There are no directions for making a game, right? Maybe the programming, but work of art. I don't think you can say it any better than that. That's true.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your really super busy schedule to hang out with us here. And anybody else who's watching, please feel free to tweet at any of us if you ever want to talk about like the show and stuff, or if you want to comment below, with questions or just kind of general comments and stuff about the game or about Simon himself. And if you want to find any of us on Twitter, you can go to our official account, which is @GoCritical. It's capital G and a capital C. Or you can tweet at me personally. I'm at JimmyGood013. If you'd like to tweet at Joe, you can tweet at
Lever_627.
Perfect. And then if you want to tweet at Simon, where you're under the official @10chambers account, correct, on Twitter?
I'm sort of the community manager as well in 10 Chambers. So I run the official Twitter account. So yeah, you can follow @10chambers, 10 with letters. My personal one is just at Simon Viklund in one word.
Perfect. Cool. Nice. Yeah. Well, because that's definitely how we've been keeping in touch, and it's been really cool to reach out and like get that response. And I think that's one of the reasons I love Twitter, because I think like a lot of times for me, Twitter is like such a love-hate relationship where there's just like so much like negativity and all this sadness, but then it's also like I get to connect with people I never would have had the chance to connect with otherwise. So that's
double-edged sword, Jimmy.
Yeah,
double-edged sword.
You gotta be careful how you wield it, right? But yeah, so GTFO coming out soon. Is there anything else you want to tell us about the game before we wrap up here for today?
No, just check out the trailers on YouTube, and if you like it, go to our Steam product page and add it to your wish list. And engage with us on social media. We have a forum on Steam, and there's a Reddit. It's an unofficial Reddit, but that's how we want to keep it. And yeah, follow us on Twitter and talk to us. I'm very active on the official 10 Chambers account and answering
Yep,
questions.
I can attest to that. He definitely is. He's very responsive, which I really appreciate.
Jimmy, I'm sure you'll link it below, right, in the description.
Oh yeah, I'm going to link all this
this
stuff. Yeah, basically I'll link everything so you guys should be able to find it. Super easy and super simple. But if you have a question for some other reason, if that information isn't good enough, just, in the comments, be like, hey, I need to find this thing. I'll be like, here you go. But yeah, I'll put it down there in the description. So thank you. And anybody who's watching us, thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you want to support us, consider checking us out on patreon.com/critical reviews. Either way, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, just remember to adapt and overcome.